Thank you so much for that awesome introduction. So, hello everyone, hope you're all being safe. So, let's get started with the session. The topic which I've chosen today is what it takes to become a modern web developer in 2020. Why did I choose that? Because when I started my professional journey like 2 years back, I was completely new to the front end journey. So during all of my college days, I was into mobile app development. So when I started the front end, I thought it's just a basic color change or a font and stuffs and a couple of tags. And after working with the front end task for like last 2 3 years, 2 to 3 years, I came to know across a lot of technologies and frameworks. And there are new technologies which is coming like every single day. So in this talk, I wanted to share all of these learnings which I had in past 2 years and give a set of steps to where to start off with and end to become a full stack web developer. So this session is totally for beginners. Let's get started. So what's the agenda for this session? So I'll start off with what is web development basically, and why to start off with web development right now, and what are the good to knows before starting off with web development. And then we will see the set of steps that you need to go across to become a complete web developer. So this steps is totally based on my experience and journey in the past 2 years. Feel free to switch between technologies. And then we have a last surprise session. So what is web development? As we all know that web development is basically developing websites. Everything we see on the internet browser today are done using three main technologies, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And of course, we have Angular, React, and all other new technologies which have come today to make the websites much more smoother and load faster and provide us a greater performance. So why become a web developer and why now? So, and the reasons which I'm going to give is like personal, and you might find those reasons a really valid one to start the web development. So the first one is it's very interesting and fun. Whatever code changes you make, you just see it in the browser as a user, right? So that's one of the first reason I would feel to start web development. And one of the main other reason is it's very easy to become a web developer considering the other stacks because one does not need to have a CS degree or a data structure background to become a web developer. And one other reason is like this job or this field actually involves a frequent communication between product owners, designers, and then you'll be the front face for the users, and you have to think from the user's point of view. And since I love people, this field or this job role gives me kind of a good interaction with people across different stakeholders. And one other thing is there is a new technology or a framework which will be emerging every single day. As you can see, we have Angular, React, and then Vue, then we have Svelte right now. So there'll be a lot of constant learning in this field. And the other thing is there is a lot of job market available for this. And as everybody knows, as far as these web browsers and mobile devices are going to be there, the job market for web developers are going to be there. And so definitely this is going to be one of the most sought after job, which is going to be very high in demand. And these are some of the top reasons I would ask you to consider while choosing web development. So before jumping on to the technologies, it would be really great to have some add-ons on some of these things. So one is like just to have a basic knowledge of how internet works, and how a browser works, like when you type a particular URL, how it kind of maps a domain name and then fetch the website, and to have a basic knowledge of different version controls like Git or SVN. So let's see how the journey looks like. So the first step would be HTML and CSS. Of course, these are the two core technologies for developing any websites. So HTML, as everyone knows, it's a markup language. It is the main backbone of any web page. It kind of gives a structure to a website. And the next technology is CSS, which is Cascading Style Sheet. As the name suggests, it provides a styling to the web pages and defines how a web page should look across different devices or different screens, and how a button should look. This basically gives a look for a web page. And the next one is JavaScript, which is one of the most hated language, but still, which is the coolest language, I would say. So it's basically a client-side scripting language used for making the web page more dynamic. And it is the one which does all the makes all the interactions possible in a web page, like an even click or a call to an API. Everything is done using JavaScript. And and one of the coolest thing is JavaScript is the most used language in the market these days. And the next comes the package managers. The package manager is nothing but a collection of software tools that basically automates the process of installing, upgrading, and configuring a software packages which was developed already. So we don't need to develop the code again from the scratch. And some of the popular package managers we have right now is npm and yar, node package managers. So it actually lets people get started on a project easily without needing to get started from the scratch. The next one are the task runners. So the use of task runners are, it's actually a tool to automate a repetitive task such as a CSS minification or combining all the JavaScript different multiple JavaScript files into a single file, or making a change visible in a browser whenever we make changes in the code. So these kind of changes are done using using Grunt and Gulp, which are the famous task runners. Um, yeah. Moving on to the next one, which is a framework. So a framework is basically a tool which allows the developers to create an app instantly by providing all the required commonly used modules bundled together. So these frameworks are based on the design patterns like MVC, Model View Controller, and solid concepts used in all the softwares. So the main advantages of using this framework is that it allows us to skip all the tedious process of developing the application from the scratch. That provide us with the basic structure that we needed to create a web application, resulting in saving a lot of time for the web developers. And these frameworks helps us to create a reusable components for our website. So the most popular frameworks which has a very high demand, as many of us would have heard, are Angular, React, and Vue.js. So Angular is a full framework which is based on the pattern of Model View Controller, which will allow to create a web application instantly. Whereas the major difference with React is that it's just a view of a Model View Controller. So this is not a complete framework, but a library to start off with. So they basically helps us to create a view components, and we have to streamline the architecture of the framework. And next is Vue.js, which is basically it combines the pros of both Angular and React. Makes the bundle size really smaller and also easier for the developers to start off the web application. So these are some of the famous frameworks which have come into the market right now, and there are new other frameworks like Svelte which are coming into the market. The next step would be to learn a bit about testing frameworks like Jest or Jasmine. So these frameworks can be used in the front-end development to make unit testing, integration testing, all this kind of API testing can be done using these frameworks like Jest and Jasmine in Angular or React. The next one I would suggest to go on to is to know about what are progressive web apps and accelerated mobile pages. So, what are progressive web apps? So, they are designed to combine the best features of mobile apps and the mobile web, such as speed and offline usage, without downloading anything. So, instead of native application, we can go for PWAs, which supports a lot of mobile features like push notifications, like a mobile app would do. Then we come to accelerated mobile pages, which is actually an open source framework developed by Google in collaboration with Twitter. So they actually help us to create a better, faster experiences, to build lightweight experiences for mobile web by simplifying and minifying the HTML and streamlining the CSS rules. So these are one of the new technologies which are in the web development, which is progressive web apps and accelerated mobile pages. At last, we can also create native web applications using frameworks like Angular or React. So these are incremental steps that I've chosen, like to start the web developer journey. So basically, one can start off with knowing the basics of HTML, CSS, then moving on to a little bit of JavaScript, then package managers, then going for task runners, after which frameworks, testing, PWA, and developing mobile applications. So it doesn't necessarily need someone to finish completely one technology and move on to the other. You can just switch and swap, but then knowing all of these basics before moving on to the next technology will definitely help to get a more fundamental basic knowledge of web development. And the last slide, which is a surprise. So, learning web technologies like JavaScript only doesn't allow us to develop web applications which is interactive, but also it will enable a front-end developer to do all the back-end tasks like connecting to websites and other server-side tasks like file systems, HTTPS requests, or streams using JavaScript, using Node.js. And it actually opens a new avenues for developer. And especially a front-end developer can become a full-stack developer just only by knowing a JavaScript. So this is a very open field where a lot of scopes are there to develop oneself. So that's pretty much I would like to share about the web developer journey. So I hope now you've got an idea of various technologies and a roadmap to consider for starting with web development. And I would love to sync up with you all in either LinkedIn, Twitter, or any session for any further questions or discussions. And this is pretty much the technologies that are there in the web development and which I have come across till my journey here in web development. So thank you for joining me. Be safe and be kind to one another.